The scientist Einstein once said that the definition of madness was doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So Ireland, what are we at? And Fianna Fáil get caught with their fingers in the till and a scandal erupts. And then there's another tribunal at which thousands of lawyers make millions of euro at the taxpayers' expense. And then the whole thing is brushed under the carpet. People say to themselves, oh, let's get rid of Fianna Fáil. Let's replace them with who? With Fine Gael. And then Fine Gael get in and implement the exact same policies. And because they were never in power as often as Fianna Fáil, they didn't seem tarnished with the brush of corruption. Leave them in power for a few years and next thing you know, people like Maurice McCabe are being falsely accused of child sexual abuse. Francis Fitzgerald, the Minister of Justice, has to resign. Seems to me that the only difference between these two parties is that Fine Gael are a bunch of Thatcherite snobs who are absolutely contemptuous of the working class. They'd wrap themselves in the Union Jack and bring back the empire in a flash. And in a way, they are inviting in Canadian and US vulture funds to work hand in hand with Irish developers and landlords to rip off the people of this country and create the biggest housing crisis we've ever seen. But then Fianna Fáil, policy-wise, are exactly the same, except the Fianna Fáiler will put his hand around you, like a member of a mafia gang, palling up to you before he stabs you in the back. Gone-bean gangsters and crooks who say whatever it takes, depending on which way the wind is blown, to get your vote. But then once they're in power, they're as bad as Fine Gael. Every bit as bad. But the problem is, Leo Varadkar has been so obviously contemptuous of working class people that people in desperation might vote for Fianna Fáil to get rid of Leo Varadkar. Now a lot of working class people don't vote Fine Gael. In fact, a lot of working class people in the last few elections haven't been voting. But there's a worrying sign of some older working class people returning to Fianna Fáil to try and get Leo out. But that's like voting to have your left leg chopped off to stop getting your right leg chopped off. I mean, Fianna Fáil started as a radical sounding party. I mean, they were formed out of the anti-treaty forces with De Valera at their head. But all their talk of nationalising the banks, of standing up to the empire, of ending partition, their promises of radical change evaporated as soon as they were in power. And then he shook hands with Archbishop McQuaid. It was De Valera and McQuaid who sat down and wrote the 1937 constitution of this country. We need to break the cycle of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael. And we came close to doing it before. But it was the cowardice of parties like the Labour Party that stopped us winning. During the rebellion that founded this state from 1916 to 23, the Labour Party refused to take a lead in those militant struggles, instead leaving it to the people who would go on to become the parties of the Irish rich. And then in the 1960s, there was 1.5 million strike days lost by the end of the 60s. There was the massive upheavals in the north. The system was being challenged in Ireland by working class people, north and south. The Labour Party started talking about socialism and said the 70s would be socialist. They said they'd never go into coalition with Fine Gael. They said they'd lead the working class to victory. They got into government in 73 with Fine Gael. They dropped all their radical proposals. They allowed Fine Gael to run rampant, run riot and kick the working class. People were so let down and so disappointed that so much struggle could lead to a cul-de-sac, to a dead end. Guess what happened? People were so demoralised that in 1977 they voted for Fianna Fáil to get rid of Fine Gael and Labour. They voted for Fianna Fáil in such large numbers, the greatest numbers that Fianna Fáil had ever got. And so again and again and again, there's been chances to break the golden circle. There's been chances to break the cycle of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. But unfortunately, working class people who go out and protest have been led by the likes of Labour. And so if we want to break the cycle of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, we have to urge every working class person we know to not vote for the right. But also, we have to tell people you can't vote for parties that are willing to prop them up every time A so-called left party goes in with the right chew them up and spit them out. And then the cycle just repeats itself over and over and over. Well, I for one am sick to death of homelessness, of watching loved ones die on trolleys in underfunded hospitals. It has to come to an end. It can come to an end. And it's up to you on February the 8th to cast your vote for the working class. Vote for people that truly represent the working class. Vote for people that will not go into coalition with the right. Vote for radical left representatives who'll be the voice of the working class and the voice of protests on the streets. Put some rebels in the dock.